I was 73 years old when my heart stopped on the operating table. They told me later it was a routine surgery, nothing dangerous, just a small procedure they had done 1,000 times before. But my body had other plans. I remember the cold of the room, the bright lights above me. A nurse held my hand and said everything would be fine. I wanted to believe her. Then the doctor said something I did not understand. Words I had never heard before. The beeping machines changed their rhythm. The sound became faster, then slower, then nothing. The last thing I heard was someone shouting my name, then silence. Not the silence you know, not the quiet of a room when everyone leaves. This was different. This was a silence so deep it felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. I opened my eyes, at least I think I opened them. But there was nothing to see, just a soft, gentle light. Not bright like the hospital lights, softer, like the first light of morning when the sun has not yet come up. The kind of light that makes you feel safe without knowing why. I was floating. That is the only way I can describe it. I had no weight, no pain, no fear. For the first time in decades, my body did not ache. My back did not hurt. My hands did not tremble. I was just there. I looked down and saw nothing. No hands, no legs, no body at all. But I was still me. I could still think, still feel, still remember. I remembered my wife. Her name was Eleanor. She passed away 6 years ago. I remembered her laugh, the way she would tap my arm when I told a bad joke, the smell of her hair when she leaned close. I remembered my son, David. He was in the waiting room when my heart stopped. I saw him sitting in a plastic chair, holding a coffee cup that had gone cold. He did not know yet. He was just waiting. I tried to move toward him, but there was nowhere to go. I was not in the hospital anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere between. The light around me began to change. It became warmer. Not hot, just kind. Like being wrapped in a blanket someone had kept for you since childhood. And then I heard it, a voice. But not a voice like you are hearing now. Not words that travel through air and enter your ears. This was different. This voice came from everywhere, from inside me, from the light, from the silence itself. It said, "You are not finished." I wanted to ask what that meant, but I could not speak. I had no mouth, no voice, but somehow I answered, not with words, with something deeper, a feeling, a thought, a question. Am I dead? The light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, and the voice returned. You are between, your body rests, but you are here. I did not understand, but I was not afraid. That surprised me. All my life I feared death. I feared the darkness. I feared leaving my son alone. I feared the unknown. But this was not darkness. This was light. This was peace. I thought of Eleanor. I wondered if she had been here, if she had felt this same warmth when her own heart stopped. I wondered if she was still here, somewhere in this gentle light, waiting for me. The voice spoke again. She is here, but not as you remember. She is part of this now, as you will be, but not yet. I felt something then, a presence, someone familiar, someone I had not felt in 6 years. It was Eleanor. I could not see her, but I could feel her. The way you feel someone standing behind you before they speak. The way you know your child is home before you hear the door. She was there, and she was not alone. There were others, faces I could almost remember. People I had known long ago. My mother, my father, a friend from the war who died when we were both young. They were there in the light, waiting. I wanted to stay. I wanted to step into that light and be with them, to feel Eleanor's hand again, to hear my mother's voice. But the light began to pull away, slowly, like a tide going out. "Not yet," the voice said again. "You have something to carry back." I tried to fight. I tried to hold on, but the light was fading. The warmth was slipping away, and I felt myself falling. Not down, not up, just back. Back into something heavy, something tight, something that hurt. I opened my eyes. There was a white ceiling above me, fluorescent lights, the sound of beeping machines, the smell of medicine and plastic. A nurse was looking at me. Her eyes were wide. She was saying something, calling for someone. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. My chest hurt. My hands were cold. And yet, I remembered everything. The light, the voice, Eleanor. I remembered it all. And I knew in that moment that I had been given something, a secret, something most people never get to know. I had seen what comes after, and I came back to tell it. I did not tell anyone at first, not the doctors, not the nurses, not my son when they finally let him into the room. I lay there in the hospital bed, watching his face crumble with relief, and I said nothing about the light. What could I say? "David, I saw your mother. She was waiting for me." He would have smiled politely, nodded, blamed the anesthesia, the lack of oxygen, the stress of the surgery. He would have called it a dream, a hallucination, the brain playing tricks as it shuts down. I might have believed that myself if it had felt like a dream. But dreams do not feel like that. Dreams are messy, chaotic. They jump from one thing to another without reason. This was different. This was clear, ordered, more real than anything I had ever experienced. When I close my eyes now, I can still see the light, still feel the warmth, still hear the voice. "You have something to carry back." Those words stayed with me. They followed me home from the hospital. They sat with me in the quiet hours of the night. They whispered to me when I was alone. What was I supposed to carry back? What secret had been placed inside me? I spent weeks trying to understand. I would sit in my armchair by the window and stare at the garden Eleanor had planted years ago. The roses were still there. She had loved those roses. Every spring she would go out with her gloves and her little scissors and talk to them like they were children. I never understood that. Now I think maybe she understood something I did not. Maybe she had always been closer to that light than I was. The first time I spoke about what happened, it was not to David. It was to a woman I had never met before. Her name was Margaret. She sat next to me in the hospital waiting room during a follow-up appointment. I noticed her because she was crying, quietly, the way people cry when they do not want anyone to see. I asked if she was all right. She said her husband was in surgery, a bad heart. The doctors were not sure he would make it. I sat with her. I did not say much. But after a while, I found myself speaking. The words came out before I could stop them. "I died on that table," I said, 3 months ago. My heart stopped for 7 minutes. She looked at me. Her eyes were red, but she was listening. "I saw something," I said, "a light, a warm light, and I heard a voice. It told me I was not finished, and I felt peace, more peace than I have ever felt in my whole life." Her hand reached out and took mine. She did not say anything, but her grip tightened. "If he goes," I said, "if his heart stops, do not be afraid for him. He will be all right. He will be somewhere beautiful." She started crying again, but differently this time. She was not crying because she was scared. She was crying because someone had given her permission to hope. A nurse called her name a few minutes later. She stood up, still holding my hand. "Thank you," she said. I needed to hear that. I watched her walk away, and I understood something. That was why I came back. Not for myself, not to live another 10 years or 20 years or whatever time I had left. I came back to tell people, to help them, to take away some of the fear that had followed me my whole life. I had spent 73 years afraid of death, afraid of the dark, afraid of the unknown. And then I had crossed over and found light, warmth, peace. That was the secret. There is nothing to fear. That night, I called David. I told him I needed to talk. He came over with takeout, the way he always did when he thought I was lonely. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Eleanor used to serve dinner every Sunday. I told him everything. I told him about the light, the voice, the feeling of floating. I told him about his mother, how I felt her presence, how she was not alone. I told him about the peace that wrapped around me like a blanket. He listened. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he sat there for a long time, staring at his hands. Then he said, "Do you think Mom is happy?" I had never seen my son look so young. He was 45 years old, with gray hair and glasses, and the same tired eyes as his father. But in that moment, he looked like a boy again, a boy who had lost his mother and never stopped missing her. "Yes," I said. "I think she is happier than she ever was here." He nodded slowly. Then he wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I wish I could see her," he said. "You will," I said, "someday, but not yet." She told me. She said, "You still have work to do." He smiled, a real smile, the kind I had not seen on his face since Eleanor passed. We ate our dinner. We talked about other things, work, the garden, his daughter's school play, normal things. But something had changed. Something had shifted between us. He believed me, not because he understood, but because he trusted me, and because he wanted to believe that his mother was somewhere beautiful, waiting for him. I went to bed that night feeling lighter than I had in months. I lay in the dark and looked at the ceiling, the same ceiling I had looked at for 30 years, and I felt it again. Just for a moment, a flicker of warmth, a whisper of light. "Good," the voice said. "You are beginning." I closed my eyes and smiled. There was more to do, more people to talk to, more fear to take away. I was ready. The dream started a week after I told David. Not nightmares, nothing like that, just visits. I would close my eyes at night and find myself back in that place. Not fully, not the way it was during the surgery. This was softer, like standing at the edge of a lake and dipping my toes in the water. The light was there, always the same gentle light, and the warmth, and the feeling of being held by something much larger than myself. Sometimes I would hear Eleanor's voice, not words, just the sound of her, a laugh, a sigh, the way she used to hum when she was cooking. Little things that told me she was close. I woke up each morning feeling rested, more rested than I had felt in years. The aches in my joints were fading. My mind was clearer. The fog that had settled over me after Eleanor died was finally lifting. The doctor said it was a miracle. My heart, which had been weak for so long, was getting stronger. My blood pressure was normal. My lungs were clear. They had no explanation for it. I did not tell them what I knew. They would not have believed me anyway. But I knew. Something had changed inside me when I crossed over. Something had been repaired. Not just my body, something deeper. I started going for walks. Short ones at first, just to the end of the street and back. Then longer. To the park where I used to take David when he was small. To the church Eleanor and I had attended for 40 years. To the cemetery where she was buried. I sat by her grave for a long time that first visit. The stone was simple. Her name, her dates, a small carving of a rose. I talked to her, not in my head, out loud, like she was sitting right there beside me. "I saw you," I said, "in the light. I felt you there." The wind moved through the trees. A bird sang somewhere nearby. "I'm not afraid anymore," I said. "I wish I had known sooner." I wish I had not spent so many years worrying. You always told me not to worry. You said everything would be all right. I never listened. I smiled. She would have laughed at that. She always laughed when I admitted she was right. I stayed until the sun began to set. Then I walked home, feeling lighter than I had in years. The next morning I got a call from Margaret, the woman from the hospital waiting room. She had found my number through the hospital. She wanted to thank me. Her husband had made it through the surgery. He was recovering at home. She told him what I had said about the light, about the peace, and he had cried. He had been terrified of dying for as long as she had known him, and my words had given him something he had never had before: hope. She asked if she could bring him to meet me. I said yes. They came on a Saturday afternoon. Margaret's husband was a tall man named Frank. He walked slowly, leaning on a cane. His face was pale, but his eyes were bright. We sat in my garden by Eleanor's roses. I made tea and we talked about small things at first. The weather, the garden, how Frank was feeling. Then Frank looked at me and said, "Margaret told me what you said, about dying, about the light." I nodded. "I have been scared my whole life," he said. "Every day, every night, waking up afraid, going to sleep afraid. After the surgery, I thought I was going to die. I could feel my heart giving up, and all I could think about was the dark." His voice cracked. Margaret took his hand. "But Margaret told me what you said," he continued, "that there is light, that there is peace, and something in me, something I cannot explain, it believed her." I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder. "I was scared too," I said. "For 73 years I was scared. Every ache, every pain, every time my heart skipped a beat, I thought it was the end, and I was terrified." He was listening, really listening. "And then my heart stopped," I said, "and I found myself in a place so beautiful I cannot describe it. Light, warmth, love. More love than I have ever felt in this world. And I realized that everything I had feared was nothing, nothing at all." Frank was crying now, silent tears running down his cheeks. "I saw people there," I said, "people I had lost, my wife, my parents. They were waiting, and they were happy. They were not sad, they were not lost. They were just there, in the light, at peace." I squeezed his shoulder. "You do not have to be afraid anymore," I said. "When your time comes, and I hope it is a long time from now, there will be nothing waiting for you except love." Frank broke down. He put his head in his hands and sobbed. Margaret held him, and I sat with him, saying nothing, letting him feel what he needed to feel. When he finally looked up, his face was different. The fear was gone. In its place was something I had not seen in many people: peace. "Thank you," he whispered. I nodded. "You do not have to thank me. I am just telling you what I saw." He smiled, a real smile, the same kind David had given me when I told him about Eleanor. They left as the sun was going down. Frank walked taller than when he had arrived. Margaret held his arm and looked at him with an expression I knew well: relief. The kind of relief that comes when someone you love finally lets go of something that has been hurting them. I watched them walk down the street, and I felt the warmth again. Just a flicker, just a whisper. "Good," the voice said. "You are helping them." I went inside and made myself a cup of tea. I sat in Eleanor's chair, the one she always sat in when she read her books. And I knew in that moment what the secret was. It was not a secret at all, not really. It was something we all know deep down, but spend our lives trying to forget. Death is not the end, it is a door. And on the other side of that door is everything we have ever loved, waiting for us. Word spread after that. I do not know how. Maybe Margaret told someone, maybe Frank told someone. Maybe the hospital staff, the ones who had seen my heart stop and start again, let something slip. However it happened, people started coming to my door. Strangers, people I had never met. They came with fear in their eyes and questions in their hearts. What did you see? Was it real? Will I see my mother again? Am I going to be alone? I talked to every one of them. I invited them into my home. I made tea. I sat with them in the garden by Eleanor's roses. And I told them what I had seen. The light, the warmth, the voice, the presence of everyone I had ever loved. Some of them cried. Some of them sat in silence. Some of them asked the same questions over and over, trying to understand something that cannot be understood with the mind, only with the heart. One woman came to see me. Her name was Ruth. She was 82 years old. She had lost her husband 40 years ago and had been waiting ever since to join him. I am not afraid to die, she told me. I am afraid that when I die, he will not be there, that I will be alone, that all these years of waiting will be for nothing. I took her hand. Her skin was thin and spotted with age, but her grip was strong. I felt my wife, I said. I did not see her with my eyes, but I felt her. She was there. She was waiting, and she was not alone. Your husband is waiting too. I promise you that. She looked at me with eyes that had seen 8 decades of life, eyes that had buried a husband, raised children, watched the world change in ways she never expected. How do you know? She asked. How can you be so sure? I thought about that. How could I be sure? I had no proof, no evidence, nothing I could show her or anyone else. All I had was what I felt in that moment when my heart stopped, and the feeling that had stayed with me ever since. Because I was there, I said, and what I felt was not a dream. It was not my brain shutting down. It was more real than anything I have ever experienced in this body. And what I felt most was love. Love that did not come from me. Love that came from somewhere else, somewhere bigger. Ruth was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. I believe you, she said. I do not know why, but I believe you. She left that day with a lighter step. I watched her walk down the path to the gate. She stopped at the roses. She bent down and smelled one. Then she smiled and continued on her way. I knew in that moment that she would be all right. When her time came, she would not be afraid. She would walk into that light with open arms and find her husband waiting. That was my purpose. I understood it now. The reason I had been sent back. I was not sent back to live a long life. I was not sent back to see my grandchildren grow up or to watch the seasons change. I was sent back to tell people, to be a voice for the silence, to be a hand reaching out to those who were drowning in fear. It took me a year to understand that, a year of talking to strangers, a year of sitting in my garden, holding hands, wiping tears, telling the same story over and over. And then, one night, I felt something change. I was lying in bed, the same bed I had shared with Eleanor for 30 years, the same room, the same window where the moonlight came through the curtains, and I felt the warmth again, stronger this time, not a flicker, not a whisper, a wave, a tide. I closed my eyes and I was back in the light, fully this time, not just standing at the edge. I was in it, surrounded by it, held by it. The voice came, but it was not just a voice anymore. It was a presence, a being, something vast and gentle and full of a love so deep it made my heart ache. You have done well, it said. You have carried the secret. You have shared it. Now it is time. I understood. I did not ask questions. I did not fight. I simply let go. I felt my body below me, the old man in the bed, the heart that had stopped once and kept beating for one more year, the hands that had held so many strangers, the voice that had spoken the truth over and over. And I felt myself rising, not falling this time, rising. The light grew brighter, warmer, and then I saw her, Eleanor. She was young again, the way she was when we first met. Dark hair, bright eyes, the smile that had made me fall in love with her 60 years ago. She held out her hand. "You took your time," she said, and she laughed. That laugh I had missed for 7 years. I took her hand, and I felt no fear, no sadness, no regret, only peace. We walked into the light together. In my garden, the roses are still blooming. People still come to the door sometimes. They ask for the old man who died on the operating table, the one who came back with a secret. David tells them what I told him. He sits with them in the garden. He makes tea. He holds their hands. He tells them there is nothing to fear, that death is not the end, that love is waiting for all of us. He believes it now, not because he saw what I saw, but because he saw what I became after I came back. A man without fear, a man at peace. That is the real secret. Not what happens after death, but what happens before. The fear we carry, the weight we hold, the way we spend our lives running from something that was never dangerous to begin with. If you are reading this, if you are carrying that fear, I want you to know something. When your time comes, you will not be alone. You will not be in darkness. You will not be lost. You will find yourself in a place so beautiful, you will wonder why you ever feared leaving this world. And everyone you have ever loved will be there, waiting for you. That is the truth I carried back. That is the secret I came to share. And now, my work is done.